like what is genome, and then the size of the genome, the shape of the genome, particularly the chromosome we were talking about, and then we also discussed ploidy. So in today's class, I thought let's discuss the genome eukaryotes. So eukaryotes, you all are familiar with that the chromosome is localized inside the nucleus, and you have the DNA present in also organelles, which are mitochondria and chloroplast. What about in prokaryotes? Prokaryotes, we discussed in the last class that the genome is present in the form of chromosome. We also discussed that it is so I think the class is familiar with chromosomes and plasmids. So I would like you to explain a chromosome and a plasmid. Yes, students. Shalini, are you there or left? Shalini, Gopika?
Can you please repeat the question?
The question is, what's the difference between chromosome and plasmid? How? So let's say you have isolated a new bacterial strain, and you found that the strain has 1 megabase pairs of two copies of 1 MB DNA. Now the question is how to say that this 1 MB DNA is chromosomal DNA or is it a plasmid DNA? How do we define plasmids? Okay, let's start with this.
Plasmids are like outside the nucleus, I think, and they're like double-stranded DNA.
Much noise, Gopika. So you are defining plasmid, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about Shalini? Are you there or no? Okay, who else is going to try? Pratham Bansal?
Plasmid is circular DNA strand in the cytoplasm.
Okay, so he says circular DNA in the cytoplasm. Okay, what about others?
Ma'am, we are talking about plasmids in a eukaryote.
Okay, so that's another point. We will come back to it. Plasmids in a eukaryote.
Ma'am, I would say like if you remove the plasmid, then the reproduction of the cell probably wouldn't be affected. But if you remove the main genome or the main genome or the chromosomes, then our reproduction will be affected.
Devpriya, say it again.
Ma'am, reproduction will be affected if you remove the chromosome, but not so with the plasmid.
Okay.
And ma'am, how do prokaryotes also have chromosomes? Like they have a single chromosome, right?
Last class में I explained you.
I'm just just
You forgot? So we discussed in the class that you have single circular chromosome. For example, E. coli has single circular chromosome. Rhodococcus has single linear chromosome. There are some species of Rhodococcus which contain single circular chromosome, right? Likewise, you have certain strains. For example, Agrobacterium contains two chromosomes. Some strains have one circular and one linear chromosome. Borrelia has linear chromosomes. So all kinds of varieties there.
yeah, okay.
And they are all going to be different. When we talk about ploidy, that means you have same type of chromosomes. So for example, we discussed, you remember, Corynebacterium is diploid. So that means you have two chromosome copies, but then both of them are sequence-wise identical. You remember that?
Yes, I remember ploidy.
Yes. Okay, Jaskin.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Okay.
plasmids are extra chromosomal DNA that help the organism to adapt to the newer environment and develop some resistance against external factors which may disrupt its growth.
Okay, so extra chromosomal DNA and helps in adaptation. Okay, so the question is plasmids. So it says the first point that was mentioned was plasmids are circular DNA in the cytoplasm. So here I would like to say that plasmid can be circular or linear. Okay, so we have both kinds of plasmids reported from from bacteria. So you have circular as well as linear plasmids. Plasmids are present in eukaryotes as well as in prokaryotes. So let's write they are present in eukaryotes and prokaryotes. The example for eukaryotes is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So it contains an yeast 2 micron plasmid. Prokaryotes, there are ample number of examples, many examples, and we will be discussing them in detail when I be teaching you gene cloning. So they are present in both eukaryotes and prokaryotes. They are extra chromosomal DNA. So the word extra chromosomal means they are other than chromosome. So you have chromosomal DNA and you have plasmid DNA, and it helps in adaptation because it carries genes which code for accessory functions. So class, there is a difference between essential functions and accessory functions. So essential functions are the functions which are required for the survivability of the cell. That means without which the cell cannot survive, right? So these are called as essential functions. They are also called as like housekeeping genes are there. Functions. So plasmids usually have accessory functions, and what Dave Priya mentioned is very true, that plasmids can be removed from a cell. We are going to learn how a plasmid can be removed from a cell, but the method is actually called as curing. So plasmids can be removed from a cell and the method is called as curing, and still the cell survives, right? So the major difference between a chromosome and a plasmid is that plasmid can be removed from a cell and still the cell would survive. Chromosomes cannot be removed from a cell. Chromosomes, they contain genes which are essential for the survivability of the cell. Okay, so this is the major difference between a chromosome and a plasmid. Plasmid can be removed, chromosome cannot be removed. Is it clear? No difference in size. So for example, you have a chromosome which is 1 megabase pair, but then you have a plasmid which also is 1 megabase pair. So plasmids can be really small from 1 kb, that means 1000 base pairs, and they can be very large, and these large plasmids are called as megaplasmids. Is it clear, class? So then the question is, what are chromids? So chromids are actually, they are essential for the survivability of the cell. That means you cannot get rid of them, you cannot remove them. But then the genes for replication, and segregation are exactly similar to plasmids. So that means they are kind of hybrids of plasmids and chromosomes. That is why they are called chromids. Chro from chromosome and mids from plasmids. So they are hybrids of chromosomes and plasmids. The feature which is coming from the chromosome is that they usually contain one or few genes which are essential for the survivability of the cell, and therefore if you try to cure chromids, then the cell would die. But structurally, the sequence of the genes which are required for replication and the sequence of the genes which are required for segregation. So segregation means actually partitioning. Partitioning means division into two daughter cells, right? So the plasmid has to segregate, that means partition, so that every daughter cell receives a copy of plasmid. Okay, so now hope the definition of chromosome, chromates and plasmids is clear to everyone. Yes or no? Should we move further?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so then the question is, when we talk about the localization of these chromosomes, chromates, plasmids in prokaryotes, and similarly when we talk about the structure, the genome organization in prokaryotes, there are lots of proteins involved in packaging of the prokaryotic chromosomal DNA. So these proteins are usually DNA binding proteins. So what is the charge on the DNA?
Negative.
Okay, so what kind of proteins should bind over here? Principal? Just go by the logic. If the DNA is negatively charged, then what kind of protein?
Positively charged.
Hmm?
Positively charged.
Positively charged, very good. So therefore, the DNA binding proteins, the proteins which can bind to DNA, they are usually rich in amino acids which are positively charged. And the two examples are lysine and arginine. So such proteins which are DNA binding proteins, they are abundant in these positively charged amino acids, usually lysine or arginine. And because of this feature, these proteins have positive charge, and due to this they can bind to DNA. So when we talk about DNA binding proteins class, proteins can be of two types, specific and one which are general DNA binding proteins. Okay. The sequence specific DNA binding proteins are, for example, certain regulatory proteins, certain replication proteins which recognize a particular sequence in the DNA and then bind. For example, the initiator protein for replication, it specifically binds to the origin of replication and therefore the replication initiates. So this is called as sequence specific binding. But then there are a lot of proteins which are general DNA binding proteins. So their binding to the DNA is actually kind of relaxed. They have some sequence, they recognize some sequence, but then that sequence is not so specific. It will have lots of ends, and the examples of these proteins are HU, FIS. So these are the proteins which are usually present in prokaryotes, which help in the packaging of the DNA. So when we talk about packaging, that means they help in binding to the DNA, and when they bind to the DNA, they cause bending, and then the DNA gets coiled, and then it gets super coiled, and then finally the enlarged DNA is compacted in the form of chromosome. But then when we talk about prokaryotes also have a certain organization. So it is not that in prokaryotes the DNA is present randomly as a ball of DNA. So in some of the textbooks you will find that when they draw an E. coli cell, they would show the DNA like a ball of which has lot of threads intertwined, and then they will say that this is the prokaryotic DNA. Have you seen such a figure in the textbooks?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Maybe I'll show you in the next class. But then when we try to observe the DNA under a microscope, we realize that every segment of a DNA has a particular niche, has a particular territory inside the bacterial cell. So maybe in the next class I will bring the figures, and then maybe we will discuss the packaging of chromosomes in prokaryotes. Let's start with the the packaging of DNA in eukaryotes and its organization. So class, before I discuss these techniques, I would like to know a few things from you. So like Have you seen, have you studied cell cycle? Bacterial cell cycle or eukaryotic cell cycle?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, you have studied.
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
I don't think so.
Yes, Devpriya, you were saying something.
No, I don't think we have studied cell cycle. I guess someone should confirm this.
Bacterial or eukaryotic? Is it taught in? So have you people done this course called SBL or SBL 100?
Yes, that we have done. That we have done.
So do they cover this, Udita, Gopika, Dhwani, Ashi?
I think we've touched upon the bacterial cell cycle. The eukaryotic one, I don't think so.
Okay. So in bacterial cell cycle, have you studied B period, C period, D period?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
This
Not
much.
in depth.
Okay, okay. And then in eukaryotic cell cycle, have you studied like at least mitosis, interphase, prophase, metaphase?
Yes, ma'am. That we have.
That you have studied?
Very
Huh?
basic.
Very basics. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you. Do you remember like how the chromosome? Do you remember that the structure of chromosome varies depending upon the cell cycle? Any idea along these lines?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's have a quick revision and then we will move on. So this is a typical eukaryotic cell, and you can see the different cell organelles. And what I wanted to show you in this diagram is, so what you call this? This is a chromosome or chromatin or chromatid. Any idea about all of these terms or no? If you know, fine. If you do not know, I will explain you. Or can you tell me this figure is like which stage of cell cycle? Everybody disappeared.
This is the growth phase because the chrome. Acha nahi.
No, ma'am. This is
beginning
about to
of the-
divide because
Yes.
the
chromosomes are
because
visible.
the chromosomes have replicated and formed two sister chromatids.
Okay. What about this one?
Ma'am, this
This
is the
one.
growth stage because like the DNA is still very loosely arranged, not packed.
So what is growth stage?
Growth stage as in like when the cell is formed, it takes in nutrients from the surroundings, it like performs the cellular functions, and then it basically makes more DNA so that
Correct.
it can divide again.
Yes, Vishantan. So that's what I wanted to understand, whether you people have an idea, because in eukaryotes as well as in prokaryotes, which I'll be showing you, so the structure of the chromosome, the structure of the genome changes a lot. So it depends upon when we, for example, when we study, for example, you have a case of Down syndrome. So it's very, very important, like which particular stage of cell cycle you are capturing the cells, because then the structure of the chromosome, the structure of the overall DNA would vary a lot depending upon a particular stage of cell cycle. So if we look at the cell cycle in eukaryotes, so for example, the first stage is G0, and then you have G1 phase, and then you have S phase, and then you have G2 phase, and then you have mitosis, and then cytokinesis. So the DNA replication takes place in S phase. So this is important to remember. So S, although it's easy to remember as well, S is for synthesis, and synthesis means DNA synthesis. Okay, so S phase is for DNA replication. Okay, it's DNA synthesis phase. G1 phase is when the cell prepares itself for starting the DNA replication. Okay, G2 is the phase when DNA replication has completed and now the cell prepares itself for further further cell division, right? So it has to go through mitosis, which I'll be showing you in a second, and cytokinesis is cell division. So G0, G1, S and G2, they together are called as interphase, and then you have mitosis and then cytokinesis. So a typical cell cycle in eukaryotes also has several checkpoints at G1 phase and G2 phase, because the cell would like to ensure that yes, this you require checkpoints to ensure that this check is to ensure that the cell is now ready for DNA replication, or the cell is now ready. Once the DNA synthesis is over, then the DNA has to segregate, and then the cell has to divide. So mitosis is a way by which the DNA is segregated, partitioned into the future daughter cells, right? So if you look at this diagram, this is a typical diagram. So you see that in interphase, the DNA is in the form of threads, and this is called as chromatin. Class, this is called as chromatin. Chromatin is the situation when DNA is bound to protein, but then it is not compacted. It is loose, it is not condensed. Okay, and why this is loose? Why this is loose? What will happen
Because
if
it
the
has to replicate, right? So it needs to be
Yes,
conditioned.
yes. So like the way I told you that interphase is the stage where DNA synthesis takes place, and for DNA replication, the DNA has to be opened up. If it is compacted, then the DNA replication proteins will have problems. So therefore, it has to be loosely bound to only a few DNA binding proteins, which are removed at the time of replication. So in interphase, you will see threads, and this kind of structure is called as chromatin. So sometimes people call it as chromatin network or just chromatin. Then what happens is that the DNA condenses. It condenses in the form of chromosomes. So what you see is prophase. So in prophase, you have the DNA condensed in the form of chromosome, and what you see in the structure of the chromosome, there are two chromatids which are joined together at a place which is called as centromere, right? This is called as centromere, the junction where the two chromatids are joined together. The two chromatids, when they are joined together, they make a chromosome. Okay. And then what you see is that at the two poles there are centrioles. The next phase is called metaphase, when spindle fibers form, and then these spindle fibers, they attach to the centromere of the chromosome, right? And then the two chromatids are pulled apart. Then in the telophase, nuclear membrane starts appearing, and then the chromatid again decondenses in the form of chromatin, and finally cytokinesis takes place and the cell divides, and the two daughters receive the chromosome. So overall, by showing the cell cycle, the only idea was to show you that depending upon the cell cycle, the structure of the DNA would look completely different. It can be compacted, it can be loose, it can be in the form of two chromatids joined together, or it can be in the form of chromatin. Okay. When we look at the structure of the chromosome class, so this is a typical diagram of a chromosome. So what we see is that this part, the center part where the two chromatids are joined together, is called as centromere. Each of these are called as chromatid, and then two chromatids, they form chromosome. Okay, the ends of these chromatids have a sequence, a region which is called as telomere. So there are two terms, centromere and telomere. Telomere is present towards the ends, and centromere is the place where the two are linked to each other. So centromere and telomere both contain a lot of repetitive sequences. Centromere also contains a lot of repetitive sequences. Telomere also contains a lot of repetitive sequences. But then telomeres have certain repetitive sequences, but then there are certain specific sequences. And it is these telomeres which are, when lost, they result in aging. So for example, you see across people are aging, they have gray hairs, they are like there are loss of hairs, lots of problems, all age related problems, they are the consequences of the loss of telomere. Now the point is how these telomeres are lost and what causes this aging. So we are going to discuss this when we will study DNA replication, because the loss of telomere is also called as end replication problem, and this I'll be covering when I'll be teaching you DNA replication. But for now, if you understand the structure of the chromosome, like what is chromatin, what is chromatid, what is chromosome, and the other point is the P arm and the Q arm. So when we see the structure of the chromosome, it has a small arm which is called as P arm, and the lower one is called as Q arm. So depending upon the location of the centromere class, the chromosomes can be classified into several types. So for example, you see metacentric chromosomes. So metacentric chromosome is when P arm and the Q arm are exactly equal to each other. Okay. So this classification is based upon the location of centromere. So metacentric have P is equal to Q. P arm and Q arm are exactly equal. Submetacentric chromosome, when you have a P arm is small and Q arm is long, right? Acrocentric, when P arm is too small and Q arm is too long. And telocentric, when P arm is almost negligible and you have Q arm. Okay, followed? Everybody is quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't sleep. Rest of the class following?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so this is based upon the location of the centromere. Now you can have a situation where, for example, a chromosome has two centromeres. So these are the examples when you have one centromere, but you can also see examples where there are two centromeres. So such chromosomes are called as dicentric. That means they have two centromeres. Okay. So now the question is, for example, in metacentric, how do we define which arm is P arm and which arm is Q arm? Class, you need to speak up. Don't sleep.
How is it based on the availability of a certain gene?
It is based upon the availability of certain genes. Okay. What about any other point?
Is it compulsory? Like we can name any of them like PR and QR because both are same, I guess.
Yes, Agrim, say it again.
Ma'am, I was saying like we can name any of the PR or PR because both are, I guess, same. So I think nothing like ordering is nothing important in medicine.
Okay. What about others? So Agrim is saying we can name any as P and any as Q. What about others? Speak up.
I don't know. I have no idea why.
नहीं समझ आया देव प्रिया, say it again.
Oh, I don't know why this would be the case.
Okay, so what happens is that class in eukaryotes, when we talk about what is P arm or what is Q arm, or how do we say that the chromosome is metacentric, submetacentric, acrocentric. So this you can actually say based upon the location of centromere. But then what is done is that there is a method which is called as karyotyping. Do you know what is a karyotype?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Have you studied banding patterns or anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so what happens is that Vishantan had mentioned that you can have different genes at different positions. So what happens is that when the chromosome is packaged, right? So there is always an order. So there is always an order. So some regions are like gene rich, some regions are like gene poor. Right. So depending upon that, we can use different dyes. So for example, there is a dye called GIMSA. So we can use GIMSA, and then it will create a banding which is called as G banding pattern. So I think, right, so chromosomes can be stained by several dyes, such as this is the dye which I was talking about. There are several others as well. So the dye so the dye is GIMSA. So this GIMSA dye, when used, it creates a banding pattern which is called as G banding. And because of this banding pattern, because the chromosomes can be stained, they can be colored. Therefore, actually, the term chromosome was used because the term chromosome itself means colored body. So therefore, there are different dyes which can be used for studying the pattern, and every chromosomal arm has a unique pattern, right? So for example, when we look at this particular figure or this particular figure, you will find that the pattern is very unique. So for example, in humans, if there are 23 chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosomes, so actually you will find that they all vary with respect to the location of centromere, with respect to the overall length, and then with respect to the organization of genes in the order. Followed, Agrim, or no?
Yes, but I have one question. Like, when they distribute, like they split into half, I guess vertically. With each arm must be like unique, not unique but same. Because each are going to different cells.
Agrim, you need to say it again. Your voice is not very clear.
I was just saying that when they just split up, must
Yes.
have like same set of genes because they are going into different cells. So how can they be unique? Like each arm,
Each arm, how can they be?
unique because when they split up, they must have the same gene content because they're going into different cells. No? So the daughter cells must be same.
How but they split up like vertically, and this P and Q is divided horizontally.
Oh, sorry.
Agrim Sharma and Vishantan, you need to speak up again. I cannot hear your.
Ma'am, I guess he was confused that while cell division, this chromosome splits vertically, right?
Right, so
Along the
that's why I
centromere.
showed you the figure of the cell cycle. So see over here. Let me
And I
make it
thought
big.
that the P and Q arm are like split up vertically also. So I guess they are split
No,
up also.
right. So P is here and Q is the bottom one. So for
Okay.
example, the structure that you are seeing over here. So this is which type of chromosome now, class? I've taught you just now. Metacentric, submetacentric, which categories? Huh?
Submetacentric. Sub.
Submetacentric.
Very good, submetacentric. So here the P arm is the one above and the Q arm is the one at the bottom. So when the segregation will take place, so this is the region which is called as centromere. Over here the spindle fibers will be connected, and this arm will go to, this whole set which is called as chromatid. So hope this definition is clear. I think you people are confused with chromatin, chromatid and chromosome. So in this structure, which one is chromatid? Okay, and everyone is quiet.
Ma'am, a particular, like if you divide this chromosome vertically, then either the left or right one you can.
Exactly. Everybody followed?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then two of
Yes,
these
ma'am.
chromatids make a chromosome, right? And what is chromatin?
The loose form that is present in the during the interphase.
Yes, very good. I think Ratnesh is not there today. He's quiet. Okay, so then so what I wanted to tell you is that they are going to create a unique banding pattern, and this banding pattern is going to be very unique for each of the chromosomes. So for example, when we look at chromosome number 17 and then you compare it with, let's say, chromosome number 18, just based upon the genes or dye, you will find that the G banding is going to look very different. And the differences are because of regions which are highly compacted or regions which are loosely compacted. So inside the chromosome, the DNA is compacted, but then at regions it's loosely compacted and at regions it's highly compacted. So depending upon that, the regions are classified into heterochromatin and euchromatin. But let's first discuss how the DNA is packaged and then we'll come back to this. So the question is how this 3 billion base pairs of DNA is packaged in the nucleus of a eukaryotic cell, where the length of the DNA is like 3 billion base pair and the size of the nucleus is only 5 to 10 micron. So when we say 3 billion base pair, this actually corresponds to 2 meters of DNA. So this 2 meters of DNA, how this is packaged inside the very tiny nucleus. So for that actually you need to understand the packaging of DNA in eukaryotes. So when we look at this particular figure, so what I wanted to show you here is that so let's go from the top and let's see how the DNA is packaged. So at the top, what you are seeing is the short region of the DNA double helix. So class, the other point is I did not cover the structure of DNA because I believe that Shilpi ma'am and Professor Prashant Mishra they both have covered the structure of DNA, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
So then, so this is the short region of double helix, and you can see that this corresponds to roughly 2 nanometers, right? Now what happens is that this particular double helix DNA is packaged with the help of proteins called histones. I'll be explaining you how histones help in packaging of the DNA. Histones are actually DNA binding proteins, and these are rich in positively charged amino acids which are lysine and arginine. Okay, and then this width becomes 11 nanometer, so we call it as an 11 nanometer fiber. Now you must be thinking that what is this 2 nanometer, what is this 11 nanometer, and why this nanometer is coming in. So the answer is that when we look at these DNA from 2 nanometer, and once it is bound to histone molecules, it becomes 11 nanometer because this width, this is calculated with the help of electron microscopy. So when you visualize these DNA at a particular stage of cell cycle under an electron microscope, you can actually measure the width and then calculate that yes, it is 11 nanometer or 10.8 nanometer or 11.2 nanometer roughly, right? So this can be calculated. So when histones bind to this DNA, then what they result in a structure which looks like a bead and then a thread, a bead and then a thread, and therefore the model is called as a bead on a string model, and this is a form of chromatin. So let me explain you this first. So this is a typical bead on a string model, where what you see is that in the bead, right, in the bead there are histone proteins, and these histone proteins they are of following types. Histones are H1, H2A, H2B, H3 and H4, and as I told you, they are rich in positively charged amino acids. And why positively charged amino acids? Because they need to bind to DNA, right? And the DNA is negatively charged. So positively charged proteins can bind very, very tightly to negatively charged DNA. So for example, H4 and H3 are arginine rich, H2A and H2B, they are lysine rich, and H1 is also lysine rich. These are their different molecular weights. So let's see how exactly they bind to each other. So maybe from this particular diagram it will be clear. So the core, right, the bead is made up of these four histones: H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. Okay, so what you notice is that H1 is not here. Remember that we discussed 5 proteins: H1, H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. So the core is made up of H2A, H2B, H3 and H4, and H1 is not there. Okay, and 2 copies of each of these are there. That means 2 copies of H2A, 2 of H2B, 2 of H3 and 2 of H4. So together there are 8 copies, right? 2 of each, and that is why this is called as octamer. Octamer means 8-mer, right? So this is an octamer which is called as an octameric histone core, right? Now in this histone core, which is made up of 8 histone proteins, 2 of each types of histones, 146 base pairs of DNA can be wrapped around. So now if you look at the top structure, which is bead on a string model, the total length of the DNA which is from one bead to another bead is actually 200 nucleotide. That means 200 base pairs of DNA. So that means 146 base pairs of DNA is wrapped around the nucleosome, the octameric core, which is called as the nucleosome, and then there is some amount of free DNA which is called as linker DNA. Class, are you people following?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. So then the question is how people would have realized that out of the 200 base pairs of DNA, 146 nucleotides is wrapped around the octameric core and the remaining is not wrapped. It is like a thread. So for this, the experiment that was performed was to identify this. The experiment that can be performed is you digest this whole thing with the help of a nuclease. So nuclease are enzymes which can digest nucleic acids, right? So when we talk about enzymes, proteases are the ones which attack on proteins, nucleases attack on nucleic acids, right? So in this case, nucleases will digest the linker DNA. So you see that the linker DNA is now cleaved, and then you have the released nucleosome core particle, which is just the octameric histone and the wrapped DNA, and then you can dissociate it with high salt concentrations and you will find that the DNA and the protein will get separated. So that is how it was realized that the octameric histone core actually forms the protein core, and the length of the DNA is 146 nucleotide, 146 base pair, which can be actually determined by simple DNA sequencing as well. Okay, hopefully it is clear.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Why can't the nucleus digest the DNA wrapped around, like the outside part of the DNA wrapped around the histone?
Yes. So the reason it cannot digest is that the nucleases are also proteins. They are also enzymes, right? So nucleases are enzymes or proteins, and when they digest it, right? So they also require sitting space. Point number 1. Point number 2, when nucleus digests a DNA, usually it recognizes the DNA from both the sides. But when the DNA is bound by a protein, then the DNA is not available for digestion because it is already bound by the histones. So it is not free. Only free DNA is available for binding to nucleases, which are also proteins. Dhwani, followed? So in this case, since it is bound to histones, it is not free. It is not available for digestion.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.
So now the question is, where is the H1 histone localized, and what is the role of this fifth histone? So the fifth histone is bound to the DNA as it enters and exits. So if you look at the structure, so this is a typical how exactly the binding takes place. So you see that the double helix over here, it wraps around like it makes two turns. Can you see over here? So it comes like this. And it's like the histones, the core octameric histone is like a football, you imagine, and the DNA is wrapped like a rope. So first turn and then second turn, and then it goes another to another beat and then another beat, and then it keeps on doing. So this is called as beat and this is called as string, and the model is called as a beat on a string model. The H1 histone helps in holding this entering and exiting DNA. It actually maintains, it actually holds the core, and it actually protects, it actually helps in the proper binding of the DNA and holding as it enters and exits. Then is it clear, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is how, so remember I was talking about electron microscopy. So this is how you can visualize it under an electron microscope. So in figure B, so this is a bead on a string structure. So under an electron microscope, it would look like this. And the diameter, so for example, here you will see 10 nanometer fiber. So they call it as 10 nanometer fiber, but then you will find that in some books it would say 11 nanometer fiber. So it varies, but usually it is like this, and these dimensions are calculated based upon electron microscopy only. So this is a representative diagram only to show you that how exactly it looks. So hope a bead on a string model is clear to the class. Oh, it's 9:52. So maybe I'll quickly explain you the further packaging. So this 11 nanometer or 10 nanometer fiber is further packaged into a 30 nanometer fiber, and this is a next level of packaging which actually can be packaged by two ways. One is called as a zigzag model and the other is called as a solenoid model. So the solenoid model and zigzag model both are being proposed in the textbooks. Also class, Agrim, are you there? Agrim Sharma?
Yes, ma'am.
So this part, particularly the packaging of DNA in eukaryotes, it's very nicely explained in Watson's Molecular Biology of Gene. So this is completely textbook knowledge. The only part that you will not find is about the prokaryotes like chromates and okay. So this is a typical solenoid model which shows a further level of packaging. So see this particular diagram. So over here, so you imagine we discussed bead on a string model, right? So these are individual beads. These are individual beads and they are arranged like this, like a flower. And then you have tiers of these, and this compaction is called as solenoid, right? And it can be also arranged in the form of zigzag. So this is called as zigzag model. So just the same beads, they can be further compacted in the form of a zigzag model. And again, this compaction is aided with the help of DNA binding proteins. So we are going to discuss this in a little more detail in the next class, but let's have a quick revision before the time gets over. So who is going to brief what we discussed in today's class? So maybe let me see who are the students present. Ashu. The moment I said Ashu, she left. Okay. Pavan Nayak. No. Nobody wants revision. Ratnesh. Gopika.
No, ma'am, I can't brief. I don't. I have not heard.
Kya Ratnesh? Say it again.
I said that I can't breathe. I have not heard. So
You can breathe.
no.
You did not follow.
Yes, ma'am. There was some internet connectivity issues that I didn't. I joined later. So
Okay, don't worry. What about others who would like to brief? Pratham Bansal, would you like to quickly? Time is running. Gopika Arora.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we discussed chromatids. We started with discussion on plasmids and then chromatids. We saw the diagram of the chromosome. We discussed the P and Q arms. After that, we thought.
So what are chromates? Is it clear? Everybody chromates, plasmids and chromosomes, everybody followed? Yes or
Ma'am,
no?
just one doubt about chromates. Ma'am, when the replication occurs, sometimes it's possible that the plasmid may or may not be replicated. Is that the case with chromates as well, or chromates are replicated each time the cell divides?
No, so to answer to your question, the first point that you said कि plasmid may or may not replicate, this is not actually true. Plasmid has to replicate, because then if you do not replicate, then how will you ensure that it will go to both the daughters, right? So it has to replicate at least once. So there are plasmids which are low copy, there are plasmids which are medium copy, which are high copy. So plasmids have to replicate for sure, because at least one time, so that you make at least 2 copies. Otherwise you will have a situation where one daughter receives the plasmid and the other doesn't receive the plasmid. So every single DNA, whether it's plasmid, whether it's chromosome, or whether it's chromate, everything has to replicate, right, Ashi? Otherwise, how will we
Right,
ensure
ma'am.
that both the daughters will receive? The only point is that the timing of replication can be coordinated with chromosomal DNA, in the sense that chromosome and chromate, they both initiate at the same time. So in this case, you can say that the replication is coordinated, but then in some cases, this is not coordinated. They can replicate at different times as well. Replication of plasmid is completely different. It is not at all coordinated with chromosome. Chromosomes have a different mechanism of regulation, and replication in plasmids have usually a different. They have their own set of proteins which are required for regulation.
Got it, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, and then so hopefully this difference is clear to everyone. You people do not even say yes or no.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. And then we discussed cell cycle, the various structures of chromosome, P arm, Q arm, location of centromere, right? And then bead on a string model. So any doubts on this part? If nobody wants to revise, then if you have any doubts, think about it, and then we can discuss in the next class.
Okay.
Okay.